Hello, my name is Greg Brightbill. I'm an Associate Director at the University of Maryland, Baltimore in the Division of Student Affairs, and my pronouns are he, his, him, or they, them, their. Thank you for coming today. Just so that you know, this is a part of our spring career development week. And so we still have a few more events. We have one coming up, I believe, following this at 1 o'clock, and we have 2 tomorrow. And so please check them out if you haven't RSVP'd. Hopefully this is one of many events that you've already attended. Today we're going to be talking about cover letters. And the reason we are bringing this up is because cover letters are kind of in a weird stage right now where people often talk to me and they say, Greg, should I even write one? Do I write one? How do you write one? I had one person tell me that they never submit cover letters because they don't know how to write a cover letter and they find them to be a little intimidating. Now, I get that. Cover letters are exhausting. And there's so many rules of cover letters. You know, for example, 3 paragraphs, 2 paragraphs. You need to find the name and the address of the person that's going to be interviewing you. Or some people say never use to whom it may concern. Or there's another rule of have a custom cover, which I like, custom cover letter for every job you apply for, or just use a standard one. Or somebody else recently said nobody reads cover letters, and employers sometimes tell me that too. And so I'm hearing these mixed messages. Now, what I want you to know is cover letters are still important. And they still play a really vital role in helping you communicate to a possible employer your worth, your value, and what you bring. And so to the people that don't submit cover letters, even if they're not read, I still think you're missing an opportunity to really take your application to the next level. So again, my name is Greg Brightbill. Thank you for being here today as a part of our Career Development Week. And I hope you learn a little bit about cover letters in this. So I want to have a quick poll, and we're going to use the emojis. And what I want you to do is to use, on the bottom of the screen, you have an access to your emojis. Now, if I pull this, can you all see the participants box, or do you not see that? If I pull that over, you don't see it? Well, I'll just tell you what I get. So what I want you to do, I have a question. Do you always submit a cover letter for every job you apply for? If you submit a resume and you submit a cover letter, and I want you to use the emojis, and I want you to give me a heart if it is a yes, or a little oh my gosh face if you are a no. And I want you to think always. Okay, I got a heart, 1 heart, 3. Ooh, yes. Okay. So right now I'm seeing about half of the people that have responded gave hearts that you do submit cover letters, but I see some people saying that you do not submit cover letters. That is pretty accurate to what the research shows. So now in job postings, there's job postings that require cover letters, and then there's job postings that do not require cover letters. And for those, the research that was done, they did a survey of 200 employers and recruiters and all kinds of hiring managers, and found this. So if cover letter is required, saying that there's a space for you to upload a cover letter, and it's all virtual these days, and they asked for a cover letter, still only 35% of people submit cover letters. What? So about a third, 2/3 still do not submit cover letters. And then if cover letters are not required, 38% of people do, but people still submit cover letters, and 62% don't. So it's interesting because what we're finding is that people are still not submitting cover letters, even when it's required. Now, interestingly, employers still want cover letters. It's still viewed as the application packet. And employers still show a preference for candidates who submit a cover letter. whether it's read or not. I have interviewed for many, many positions where I'm interviewing people for a job, and I review cover letters, and I kind of find this is true. I still expect to see a cover letter because a cover letter plays a very unique role. It tells me a lot about the person. I can use it if I find a resume that I find interesting. It's like, gives me a little bit of the inside story on that person. And because of this, I have extra information. And so because recruiters are saying, we still want you to submit cover letters because a cover letter tells us so much more about a candidate. It also shows that you went a little bit above and extra, above and beyond. And so even if a cover letter is optional, employers still want it. And even more, a vast majority of employers still affirm that cover letters are important for making hiring decisions. And here's another fun thing. A cover letter also helps support your resume. And so even if your resume isn't that good, the fact that you have a cover letter tells me your story. It paints a picture of who you are. And so that's why they're so important still. Because when you review like what a cover letter's purpose is, it's a cover letter serves a very different role than your resume. A cover letter should not repeat what your resume says, because I have your resume in front of me. I also have your references available if I need them, because a cover letter serves a purpose of giving a personal introduction. That's where we meet you. You're introducing yourself. You're also establishing connection. So you're telling me your story intertwined with why you want to work for an organization, who you know. You're really building those connections so that I see you, I hear you, I know you better. Cover letters also are really valuable in showcasing your writing capabilities. We know that many positions these days do require a certain level of writing capability, whether it's in communication, emailing, corresponding with people. And a cover letter gives us a better understanding of your tone, your style, your grammar. And a cover letter also complements your resume. So I don't have a book near me. So think of it this way. When was the last time you were in a bookstore and you're just wandering around looking at books? And you find a book and you're like, ooh, I wonder. And you open it up and you go to probably the summary page, the back page. And you kind of see a little bit more about the book to tell you if you want to buy it, to see if you are interested enough to open it up. And that's what a cover letter does for you. So it complements your resume. It says, you're not repeating what you're on your resume, but you're saying like, I've worked in blank field for so many years. I love networking and working with people, and I love building projects. And you're complimenting your resume because then I can look on your resume and see all of those things played out in your experiences. And then finally, a cover letter showcases your personality. Still very much so, people want to know who you are. Do you fit within the organization culture? Are we going to like you? And a cover letter gives that insight. Now, there's two major aspects that you need to think about in your cover letter. And they're broken down into the why them and the why you. You need to answer both of these questions in your cover letter very succinctly, but you need to answer them. So the why them, you need to let them know why you want to work for them. Why? What about them? And in some ways, this is a great opportunity for you to stroke their ego or to showcase who they are. So why are they unique? Why are you applying to this job? For example, if you're looking to work for the University of Maryland, Baltimore? Well, maybe because you're excited to work for a healthcare and human services institution. But also, what values are unique about the organization? What is the culture like? What is their purpose? So you connect that, because then after you say the why them, you need to then pull in the why you. Why do they want you? What makes you desirable? And so what do you bring to the table? What are your qualifications, major achievements? What specific skills do you have that they need? What perks do you bring? And perks are your knowledge, but also your connections, possibly. And so by connecting the why them to the why you in your cover letter, you're really helping to sell your abilities, almost like they have to hire you, because that you've already said like why you fit in their very specific puzzle, why your little puzzle piece is just the thing that they need, the puzzle piece that they have been missing. And so that's why this is so essential in the cover letter, the why them and the why you. And if you don't submit a cover letter, I get neither of these. I get your resume. Now, when you're thinking about a cover letter, because I said you need to do the why them to connect to the why you need to do some research. And preliminary research is where you're learning a lot about the organization. Now, in my opinion, and unless you are really crunched, but I would say even still, if you could try, every cover letter should be unique. Now I'll get to that in a second. So first, you have to research the company to be able to write a good cover letter for them. And so go on to their website, really do a deep dive on their website, find their mission, their vision, what their values are, what media they've been in. So like what videos do they have? What are they sharing? Do they have a strategic plan? Strategic plan being like a 5, 10, 15-year plan, so that you can then say, I see where you're going. Also do some research on their social media, give them a like on their social media, because that's also a thing. Look up their LinkedIn, their Facebook, their Twitter, anything that they have, because you need to really understand the organization. And a great way to see the culture of an organization is through the social medias, but also see what people are saying. Next, you got to know who's out there against them. In the organizational world, we talk about a SWOT analysis. And that's where you do an analysis of an organization using the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And essentially, you need to know what are their opportunities, what are their threats, what's going on out there. So know who their competitors are, because by knowing who their competitors are, you can kind of be extra ahead of what they're doing right, of where they can grow. And then finally, learn about the team. Now, this is a really sneaky thing, but it's really important on your preliminary research, is know what they've done, the people that you'd be working with, the people that you'd be working for, the supervisor that you'd be working with. And so if it is somebody that's published, if they've been awarded something, if they have special projects that they're working on, if they have very unique credentials, because through this, you're learning more about that personal connection that you can paint and put together in your cover letter. Like, let's say, for example, you're interested in the research and somebody on the team just recently published a journal article on something that you're very passionate about. Well, that gives you an opportunity to kind of build that connection. And even more so, when you get to the interview, you can use this too. But also, you're looking at who is the team? Who's going to be supervising you? What are their credentials? You may need to know that. And you may use that when you write your cover letter of, instead of the to whom it may concern, to instead direct it to the hiring manager. To Yvonne Smith, PhD. I just made that name up. You need to know this. And if you don't do the research and give time to that, you're going to be missing those components. And through these things, you're going to get that why them understanding. Because you're going to be able to understand who they are as an organization, and then kind of have that shape your cover letter, shape your writing, shape the story you tell in your cover letter. So I've got a quick little video, what I want you to watch. See if it works. Very short from Indeed. If it works. May not want to work. Oh, here we go. You may not be lucky today. There we go.
This is my resume, and here's its best friend, the one-page cover letter, aka its wingman. Together they work wonders, because what the cover letter does is set up the resume by highlighting what makes you a great fit for the job. It shows your personality with 3 concise paragraphs that should be readable in around 10 seconds or less. So, how do you write a cover letter? Let me walk you through one, literally. Let's say you're applying for an engineer job. Don't forget your header. Date, name, address, contact info, all that jazz. Kick it off with a greeting to address the hiring manager. If you can, find out their name. If you can't, stick with this. The attention getter. The opening paragraph. Introduce yourself and enthusiastically tell the employer why you're applying for the job. Include why you're excited and how the job lines up with your career goals. Avoid sounding formulaic by adding keywords from the job posting. The middle paragraph. Dig into your most relevant experience and talk about the specific qualifications and skills that make you the perfect candidate. Oh, and feel free to pause and read when you need to. I've only got so long. Where was I? Right. Make connections between your previous accomplishments. Employers will likely have read your resume already, so avoid repeating the bullet points. Instead, deeply illustrate those highlights. To close the curtain, thank the employer. You can also make any clarifications, for example, any major gaps in employment history. Then, provide a complimentary close and signature that's friendly yet formal, followed by your name. Well, I think that's everything. Remember that the smallest moves are...
Hopefully my internet is doing well enough to be able to see this. So,
sometimes the smartest.
This is cute, it's short, but it really does give you a good structure, an overview of as I said, the purpose of a cover letter. Now, you may have to zoom in, but hopefully you can see. A cover letter, just so that you know, you are going to find, a million opinions on a cover letter. It's just like if you talk to somebody about resumes. I work with resumes, and there's 1,000,001 opinions on resumes and things that I recommend other people do not recommend. But overall, the structure of a cover letter is pretty standard. It's very formulaic. Of course, you have the top, your name, your address. Now, just a heads up, a tip that I love, that's my preference, but I think something that's great is make sure that the style of your cover letter matches the style of your resume. And so feel free to use almost the same identical header for your cover letter as you would your resume, so that they see that they're friends, that they're together. But in your cover letter, you do need to include, your address, your name, your contact information, your email address, things that they can use to get a hold of you. And of course, you're going to include the date. They want to know that it's when you submitted the cover letter. You're going to put their information. This is why it's important that you know the name of whoever you're going to be in, the hiring manager or your supervisor. And then I mentioned this earlier, the credentials, or what's called the post-nominal letters. So in academia, post-nominal letters are the degrees that you have that are significant. So usually masters or above. And so I am Gregory A. Brightbill, MBA, MED. And so those are my post-nominal letters: Master of Business Administration, Masters of Education. And so make sure that you're including that. Their title, their organization, their address, all those things. And the first paragraph, you're going to do a quick little greeting and introduction. You don't have to read this cover letter, by the way. I've got an easier one for you to see. And then your body paragraph, you're just giving just a general understanding of who you are. And then your closing paragraph, you're just wrapping things up. And then the salutation, sincerely, and then your name. You can sign it if you want to sign it, but these days I think cover letters is not as required. Just type your name out. They don't need to know that it's signed with your penmanship, but you can if you want. And so in the opening paragraph, this is your opportunity to really give them a hook. It's more than just saying, "Hi, my name is Greg Brightbill." No, it's more than that. It's connecting. It's that pulling them in, that grabbing their attention. Now in academia, you may have a small subsection about your academic introduction. If you're interested in working in academia, it's always, I went to this school and I've got this education and this degree and my dissertation was on this, but that's not always required if you're not looking to work, let's say, for example, in a very, very formal academic setting. And so if you're not, you go straight to what's called the body paragraph, as I showed before. Now, this is where you're connecting your skills, the characteristics, your experiences, qualifications, the position, and the company. This is where you have your why them, why you. Because you're highlighting why you want to work with them, but also what you bring to the table that they do not have. And then the conclusion is pretty simple, but where you wrap up, you may thank them for their time, but you're also leaving them with just that last hook of you. And so you want to leave them with something that leaves them wanting more. And offering, of course, the standard if they have any questions, your phone number, your contact information. And then you end the letter moderately formally. The tone may depend on how you want your tone to be. You can do this sincerely, best regards. I sign mine almost every email and letter wishing you well. But this is where you wrap it up. So here's a cover letter for you. Thumbs up. How many of you are Star Wars fans, or at least know something about Star Wars? If I make a Star Wars reference. Well, not too many, I guess, but hopefully you get this. So, a Star Wars cover letter. For those of you that have seen Star Wars, here is a cover letter from our friend Luke Skywalker. And Luke says, "Greetings, exalted one." He's writing, by the way, to Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine. For those of you that can't remember, Jabba's like the big slug-looking thing. And Luke was like in the old movies. Hopefully you get everything. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight and friend of Captain Solo. I seek an audience with your greatness to bargain for Solo's life. Because as you remember in episode 2, Han Solo was frozen in kryptonite. Kryptonite? Sorry, I just failed on my reference. Whatever. While I grew up on Tatooine, I am now returning from Dagobah, where I studied under Jedi Master Yoda. I know that you are powerful, mighty Jabba, and that your anger with Solo must be equally powerful. With your wisdom, I'm sure that we can work out an arrangement which will be mutually beneficial, enable us to avoid any unpleasant confrontation. As a token of my goodwill, I bring to you a gift, these 2 droids. They are hardworking and will serve you well. As a Jedi, I only seek to maintain balance in the Force, and I assure you that our meeting will be mutually beneficial. I look forward to meeting you at your palace. Signed, Luke Skywalker. Pretty easy. I mean, you could read this. This doesn't take a lot of work. So, I thought I had a slide. Okay. So, if you look at this, automatically, the first section, we have the introduction. And so Luke is introducing himself. He's giving a little bit about who he is, his experience, the purpose of the letter. He's looking to get a meeting, not like a job interview, but a meeting. He's also saying who he is and his experience, Jedi Knight. He's also making a connection to somebody that Jabba knows, Jabba knows Captain Han Solo. So Luke is like, hey, I'm friends with Han. The next one, he's giving you a little bit of information. Now, this isn't always relevant, but in the academic setting, this kind of is. He's saying, hey, I'm like you. I grew up on Tatooine, but I was away for a little bit. I was off at college on Dagobah, and I studied under Yoda. And then next, he's saying that this is the why you, why me. Listen, Java, you're super powerful. You're smart. Yeah, you're really great. But I have stuff that you don't have. I have some things that you need. And you know what? You don't want confrontation, and I can help everybody avoid confrontation. And look, I even have these 2 droids that I'm happy to bring and give to you. So bringing in where it's the why you, why me. Well, Java wants these droids, and Java definitely doesn't want conflict. So the why you, why me. And then the wrapping it up, Luke is just again saying, the purpose of, again, as reminding, hey, listen, as we wrap up, Java, just remember that I'm a Jedi and that I seek in the end balance in the Force. And you know what? Our meeting's going to be super great, super beneficial. You're going to be so happy that you met with me. And then I look forward to meeting you at your palace. Of like saying, not, I hope to talk to you, like very forceful. We'll be in contact. Very confident. So this is a cover letter. So now what I want you to do, I'm going to give you all 5 minutes. And I want you to write a cover letter as if you are applying for the job you currently have. So you know your job, you know about it, you know the hiring manager, the person that'd be supervising you. And so I want you to quickly just jot it down, write an opening paragraph. If you are, if you think you need the academic introduction, feel free to add it in. If you don't think you need it, then don't add that. Your body paragraph, and then a formal conclusion or closing. So I want you to do that. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And if you want to type it, if you want to write it out, it's fine. It does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be beautiful. I just want you to practice just with this structure. Okay. I will see you all in 5 minutes. So let me ask you. So how did you feel? Did you like it? Do you feel like it was easier than you thought? I see Tammy's unmuted. Tammy, what do you think?
Hi, everyone. So for me, I used to see writing a cover letter as a Herculean task. I used to typically shy away from it. The only time I've written a cover letter was when I applied to my program. And subsequently, I just look for a way to evade it, But taking this class and listening to you talk about cover letter, I just made it look like a very easy process. And just following the templates that you posted made it a really easy process. I don't think I'm ever going to be scared of writing cover letters after now. So thank you very much.
Good. Yeah, the good thing about a cover letter, it's very formulaic. And if you're on the job hunt, I know I said earlier that you need to have a custom cover letter for every job, which is true. Like whenever I save a cover letter or a resume, sometimes I customize my resumes, I write like cover letter and then University of Maryland, Baltimore, and then the date that I wrote it. Now, the good news is though, once you kind of start, the good thing is that you can kind of start pulling from different cover letters if the position is somewhat similar, but it's still a custom cover letter. It's not, you really need to make sure that every cover letter has to be custom because it's written to a different person. So you should never be just submitting a templated standard cover letter that you just copy paste, because every cover letter is going to have the job description probably integrated, the job title that you're applying for, the hiring manager, their address, and then start pulling in some of the things that you liked in the other cover letters that you've written. And so possibly copy pasting and just making it so that it's like a Lego set where you're putting it together. But I'm glad that you found that it's a little bit less scary. So one question from the group, can you say more about the cover letters and services that can be found online? Also, what can you say about updating those samples, how updated those samples are? So there are services to write a cover letter. There are lots of templates you can use. But I don't think you need those, because I think there's services that capitalize on how scary cover letter writing is, when really I think it's just very natural. It's much easier than we sometimes think it is. Where, especially templates, I would try to avoid templates. Templates can be the death of you as you keep using them. I say the same thing for resumes. I see a lot of really interesting templates out there to build resumes and cover letters, but the truth is it becomes a monster that you can't control. It's like Pandora's box, because after a while, the configuration of it will get too complicated. So did anybody else, what did you think when you wrote your cover letter? Did you feel like, how did you intertwine your study? Did anybody think about the why them, why you? And obviously you're applying for the job you currently have, so you already know the why them. I know that when I am applying for jobs and writing cover letters, I often look at their websites to find, like, what do they need? Where can they grow? What is something that the organization does not have that I have? And so sometimes that means that I'm a little bit more critical, which definitely does not mean everybody should take that tone. But in my tone of cover letters, I'm usually somewhat critical of the organization to say, like, I see you have this, but I also feel like you could go do this too, and I have that skill. Any comments or questions before we move on to the next slide? So, things to remember. And of course, we talked about the why them and why you. You need to remember that in every cover letter. And in many ways, that's very unique per cover letter. You're highlighting your experiences. You're highlighting why you're the best candidate. When you're applying for a job and in your cover letter and your resume and interviewing, you have to humble brag. You have to be comfortable saying why they need to hire you and why you're the best candidate, why you're better than the other candidates. And that's a little awkward sometimes, and it takes a little bit of practice to feel comfortable with it. And often in our culture and in many cultures around the world, it's viewed as very rude to humble brag, but it's part of this process. And so be comfortable in humble bragging in your cover letter. Humble bragging so that way they're going to be interested in you. Next, when you are writing your cover letter, think of the style that you want to write. And that is more than just the style of like how you're writing, but your tone. Make sure that your tone matches the organization. Different organizations, you can tell, have different tones. Now, a cover letter and a resume and an interview is usually somewhat more formal, but there is a tone difference. My husband works for a tech company, and they wear casual clothing every day, sweatshirts and sweatpants, and the conversations they have is much more informal than what I have in academia and what I usually do. And so the tone in my cover letter would probably be very different than the tone in his cover letter. But always still keep somewhat of a professional tone in it. Next, be consistent. And so consistency in the fonts you're using, try to stick to very simple fonts that are very common. You can never go wrong with Times New Roman or Calibri. Steer clear of anything that is very exciting. Do not get creative. Do not choose fonts that are difficult to read, hard on the eyes. A cover letter should be very, very, very easy. So, try to find ones that are easy to understand. So simple fonts, they're good. But the colors that you're using, try not to get too creative in the colors. The reason being is if your resume and cover letter have a lot of colors in it and it's printed in a black and white printer, you're not going to be able to get the colors, and it may make it look gray and different, and it throws off the whole thing. Also, keep the same font as you would with your resume. I am under the opinion that you want to make sure that when they see your cover letter, they know that it's paired off with this resume so that they see them on the table sitting together. They know they're the same thing. They know they're the same person. And also with consistency, stay consistent with your structure, because this is something that's really important, is that consistency of good grammar, of consistency of writing, consistency of the same story, the same narrative, consistency of the information that you're putting on, and you don't have the wrong information, you're not saying the wrong job. Because here's the thing is just like your resume, your cover letter says more about you than just what the words on the page say. And so if there's inconsistencies, if there's typos, if there's grammatical issues, if the font changes suddenly, if it's a weird sized font and it shifts, you may say that you're a detailed and highly organized person, but if I see inconsistency in your cover letter, I'm going to actually jump to the conclusion of, I don't think you're very detail oriented and I don't think you're very organized. So you don't want them to jump to that. And that's why consistency is important. Now, the length of a cover letter should be simple. It should not be multiple pages. I guess if you're senior executive level position, maybe then you can write more than one page. I've seen that sometimes, but for the most of us, we need to keep it somewhat simple. So no longer than one page. And I would say, really not even more than half a page, 3 paragraphs, maybe 4 paragraphs, 3 to 4 sentences per paragraph. Keep it simple. You want it to be easily read. They don't need to read your autobiography. And if your cover letter is getting long, it's probably because you're repeating stuff that you have in your resume, which you don't want to do. You want your cover letter to complement your resume. You don't need to say, of course you may say where you work, but you don't need to say like where you've worked in the past, unless it is significant to making a connection with the employer. Like, let's say, for example, if you worked with them before and you're coming back, or if you worked with somebody that works there and you're telling a story and it's part of your narrative. And then finally, as I mentioned before, customize your cover letter. It cannot be a standard cover letter of to whom it may concern where nothing is customized. It should be custom. Now, it's okay if you pull from other cover letters and you kind of like have a cover letter buffet that you can pull from, but it has to be unique because you're telling a unique story about the company, about the organization. And through that, you may be pulling in certain language that you saw on their website or language that they use in their mission or their vision or their values. If you're talking about, working at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, about serving the public good in Maryland at large, and I just pulled language from the mission statement, and that's really valuable, or about, leadership and the values of diversity. And I'm pulling in language that I see in the university's core values. And so it has to be customized. And finally, when you're thinking of it, just think about what's the story you're telling. Is it a confident story? Do you seem confident in your abilities? Are you second guessing yourself? Well, I really hope to have an interview with you. Does that send us a different message than I look forward to speaking with you soon about my qualifications and how I can be a good addition to your team, or how I will be a good addition to your team? Confident. Now, one final little activity, what I want you to think about based on what we've talked about today, and we can use the chat, and you can unmute yourself if you'd like. What do you think of this cover letter? I want you to read it. So this is a person, I pulled this off the internet. They're applying for a job at the Baltimore Aquarium, and they are really excited about it. And this is all they submitted. What do you see in this? Just throw it in the chat. What do you see right away? This is all they're submitting.
Is there somewhere we're supposed to be looking for this?
Oh, am I not showing my screen? No. Oh my goodness. I just went through like 2 whole. Okay. This is the last slide that I was just talking about for you all to see. Thank you so much for telling me. So you have the topics, the style. I'm going to share this video on the internet, but now I don't want to share it because I realized that I didn't share it. So we'll see. But to answer Tammy's question, this will be posted onto the same website on career development on intercultural leadership and engagement. Okay, here is the cover letter. So, and I will share this presentation with everybody. Dear Aquarium, hey there. Ever since I was a young boy, I've had a love and passion for marine mammals. The first time I swam with dolphins, I was 5 years old, and from that moment on, I knew I wanted to be trainers. What's crazy is that there is nothing else I would ever want to do with my life. It's my lifelong dream to work with these amazing animals, and I am willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. I've spent every summer since I was 10 visiting your park and cannot wait to be one of the trainers instead of one of the guests. I know all the dolphins by name and already know what some of the hand commands mean. Please let me know what you would like me to do, because I'll do it. Or thank you for your time, and I'm so excited. Sincerely, John Smith. So, clearly, John Smith is super excited about the Baltimore Aquarium, but what do we know about this? What does this cover letter tell us? What are some of the things it says in writing, but some of the things it doesn't say that maybe from how it's written that we learn? There is, yes, grammatical mistakes. So clearly, John Smith does not have very good attention to detail. The tone is slightly off. I don't know how informal the Baltimore Aquarium is, but the tone is a little off. Repeating the same story. What else do you see? How do we contact John Smith? Without the header, do we know anything? And who is Aquarium? True, David, yes, John Smith may not be his real name, but we don't know because there's no other information. Anything else we notice?
Well, it also just sounds like an informal letter to a friend. It's not professional. I mean, and someone else included all the grammatical errors, and there's no reference to the resume. There's no reference to when he can get started. There's no reference to anything.
Yeah.
So it's like a diary entry or something.
Yeah. I see John Smith is trying to kind of weave a story in, a personal story of like why them, and then some, because why them? Because they have animals and they're excited, and then why John is because he shares their excitement, and then because he's been there so long and he's seen the park and he knows the dolphins already and all the hand commands. But it still falls flat. So, we're wrapping up on this because I want you to go back to some of your cover letters if you've ever written them. And I want you to review them using some of the tools that we've talked about today. And I want you to be critical of yourself. And I think that's important. What do you like about that cover letter? What do you not like about that cover letter? Because to be able to improve upon your ability as a cover letter writer, you need to look at what you've done already. And if you have not done a cover letter ever, then I want you to go back and look at what you wrote earlier. So think of those things. Now, quick final notes is that if you're really struggling to write a cover letter, feel free to ask friends, family, mentors, colleagues, if they can share with you a cover letter that they've submitted. I think the same thing for mentors, to be able to understand how they wrote their cover letters, really so that you understand the tone of how to write a cover letter. I would also try to do more research on grammar and understanding the tone of a cover letter. Make sure that you're using some of the tools at your disposal. Cover letters should not be something that is just written out and sent right away. should be something that you spend time on and that is unique and special. Now, I'm going to wrap up there. Thank you all so much. I believe that is our last slide. My name is Greg Brightbill. Does anybody have any questions at all before we wrap up this? I'm going to turn off the chat or turn off the recording.